Hi again, everyone. This is Stephanie Hoover back again on another podcast. This time, I'm so thrilled to be talking with Doug Baker from FMI. And Doug is here today to talk about a few things. I'm going to talk with Doug about all the good stuff that happened at the FMI Asset Protection and Grocery Resilience Conference that they had a couple weeks ago. And we're also going to talk about a really interesting survey that the FMI put together. And so, without further ado, I just want to say hi to you, Doug. How are you doing today?
Doing really good. Thanks for having me.
Great. So, Doug, for the folks on listening right now that aren't familiar with you and FMI, can you give us the elevator speech on who you are and what you do at FMI?
Sure. For FMI, I'm the Vice President of Industry Relations, which is the Food Industry Association. I have the pleasure of facilitating professional, non-competitive collaboration among member communities across several communities, and those include asset protection, but also technology and supply chain, private brands, emergency response. There are one of the things that FMI does really well is organize communities that help run this industry, and we bring them together to work on really big topics. But this year, I started my 40th year in the industry. I began as a bagger with Fry's Food Stores, which is now a division of Kroger. At the time, it was a family-owned company. And I've had the pleasure of spending 13 years with them, moving on to Nabisco, spending a couple of years with Albertsons, spending some time in private brands as a sales and marketing agency. And I've been with FMI now for 10 years. And fingers crossed they let me stay until I'm ready to go play golf full time.
Yeah. Well, not so fast. I think they need you around for a little bit, right?
Yeah,
So,
a little bit.
I know FMI does a lot. So, but for the focus of our conversation will be on the asset protection piece. So I know that you just had a very successful conference. Can you talk to us a little bit about sort of the format for that conference? Because it is a little bit different than some of the
Yeah.
other ones out there.
Yeah, it's we have our council is very involved in the development and of this conference, as well as the solution providers that participate. So every single year it changes a little bit, and I'm really pleased with what we were able to pull together this year with what we've learned. So instead of what you would typically see in a trade show where there's booths, we set up tables and we schedule 15-minute meetings that are pre-scheduled prior to either party ever arriving at the event, so they have an idea of who it is they're going to be meeting with and when. And that complements the education. And this year, what we did a little bit differently with the education is we left time at the end of each one of the major general sessions, and we prompted the attendees to have a conversation at their table with some seed questions. And then once we pulled them back, we wanted to get feedback. We wanted to hear how the session applied to the work that they're doing, or an experience that they had that was related to the session that they were doing, and really make sure that, we're sort of engaging and really digesting the information that we're hearing. And there was some phenomenal sessions there that really needed and required some time to have a conversation about it. And then, of course, we love to get together as a community, break bread, have a drink, celebrate. This year, we actually, because we were just prior to Memorial Day, we did our party. It was a salute to service. And a lot of the attendees sent in pictures of themselves or family members that have or are currently in the armed services. And so we were able to celebrate them one evening. So it was a lot of fun. This is really a family type affair. And it was pretty cool.
I have had the pleasure of attending the event a couple times. And I have to tell you, I was very impressed with it is sort of like this family atmosphere, which is really nice. And I love the roundtables. In fact, as you're describing a session and then the ability to turn to someone and talk about it afterwards, it's like, learning and growing from your learnings in real time and giving feedback in real time, which I
Yeah.
think is great. Instead of just walking out of that session and kind of, forgetting about it, you're actually talking about it, maybe remembering a lot more that way too.
Yeah, it's sort of new. We do a lot of conferences here, so we're constantly testing and learning. But what I loved was this was feedback from the attendees from last year. And so we were able to take that and actually implement it, and it worked really well.
Great. So as you listened in on all this feedback, because I'm sure you're like me, I would have been like walking around listening in to everybody talking and
Yeah.
eavesdropping a bit. Were there any big takeaways or aha moments that you had from the discussion going on?
I don't know if it was really an aha, but it's obvious the expanding role of the asset protection professional. The number of things that those individuals have to think about, in a time when retail theft is just continuing to grow and workplace violence continues to unveil itself in our stores. It's also how can they drive more profitability? So how do we reduce other types of shrink? How do we prepare for more crisis type activities, with the weather events that are happening more frequently and more severely? How do we deal with, protests sort of erupting into civil unrest? And, how do we deal with bomb threats that are coming through cyber fraud?
Mm-hmm.
So there's just so many things coming at these individuals that it's requiring, just a lot of time and energy and effort for them to just stay on top of it, and working cross-functionally with inside their organization and with inside the industry, and then also with the public sector to make sure that we're doing everything we possibly can to make sure that our employees and customers have a safe environment when they go in our stores.
One of the things I've been very impressed with this group of professionals with AP and LP professionals is that, and I came from that environment, LP myself, they're not panicking. And there's a lot flying at them. And some of it is really serious and scary stuff. And they don't seem to be panicking. They seem to be collaborating a lot more, putting their hand out and shaking hands with others, reaching out to get help. I think from what you're describing, that affirms everything that I'm seeing is that they're not hitting the panic button. They're just trying to see what are the alternatives out there.
Yeah, for sure. And I tell you what, our monthly calls are quite robust, right? Because they're constantly trying to learn from each other. The council is in understanding what type of practices are they putting into place that maybe they should be thinking about. And so there's just a lot of collaboration going on, both on the monthly calls as well as the conference, and even in between. We have most of the council on a Signal app. And so an end-to-end encrypted app. So they're sharing real-time information. They're asking questions of each other. Just a lot of communication going on, which is really what it's going to take in order to get ourselves squared away on a lot of things that they're facing.
Yeah, if there was one thing that came from the pandemic, I think is that our abilities to collaborate grew exponentially for sure and share data in real time. So,
Yeah.
what is top of mind for grocery AP? I know we talked about violence a little bit. Is that the number one thing that
Yeah. Yeah, safety and loss, I would say I would create those buckets. And under safety, you got to think about violence, and then you got to start looking at the root cause for violence, which is theft, but it's also around mental health.
Mhm.
And you know, some of the experiences that our retailers are facing, and even for that matter, product manufacturers in their distribution centers and their manufacturing facilities, mental health is a real issue for us as a country, and we're starting to see that manifest itself more and more in our stores. So I sort of make that as like the pillar of safety, is addressing that as we look at grocery stores as being leaders of their community,
Mhm.
and what types of things should we be thinking about as we support better mental health, not only for those that live in our communities, but those that come to work for us. So that was a big topic. We had a couple sessions on that. Loss is a big topic because as challenging as it is to deal with the theft, there's certain rules that are in place and laws that are in place that have created some obstacles for us. So as a business leader, you really got to start looking for other ways of mitigating loss. And so, ensuring that, there's appropriate ordering, that there's appropriate temperature controls, making sure that employees are doing the right things within the store with merchandising.
Mhm.
One of the things is you talk about ahas. Here's one of the things that I find really interesting is food and beverage cargo theft is the number one theft item by a long shot.
Really?
And it's increased from 2022 to 2023 is is almost 100%.
Okay.
It's really fascinating to me. It's not even about getting the product to the store anymore and
Mhm.
having it stolen there. It's being stolen before as it's coming out of the manufacturer, right? So it's the bad actors that are utilizing cyber and phishing and fraud and identity theft in order to portray um, the buyer purchasing product from the manufacturer,
Mhm.
and then they're sending trucks to pick that product up. Retailer has no idea this is even happening. And because they've taken that identity, they're able to do this very seamlessly. If you see pictures of railroad in California, and you can see just boxes littered along the railroads where people are just getting out of their cars, walking across the tracks, breaking into containers on rail and just stealing stuff out of it.
Mhm.
It's a little bit fascinating to me the change from one year to next, and it's moved in stores bad enough, but the cargo theft, the food and beverage cargo theft is just spiked crazy.
Mhm. So that brings up a good point, and I know we're going to talk about this a little bit when we talk about the survey. And that I think that retailers, we know that ORC is a problem. We know that these things are. It's just a growing concern, right? I think that retailers are sort of swinging back a little bit and going, okay, maybe let's focus on what we can control, right? Control the controllable, the internal theft. Maybe there are things that we can do for cargo theft. But I sort of feel like there has been a swing back, and looking at, like you said, temperature controls, spoilage, all of that stuff that's sort of like the bedrock of AP and grocery.
Yeah, yeah. If you see the research, you'll see that in-store associate safety is one of the major concerns. 92% put that at number one.
Mhm.
Shrink, 85%. Self-checkout at 81%, which leads to shrink. So they are the thing I found interesting with the research is in-store associate safety has always remained at the top. But during the pandemic, it was for a very different reason than it is really today. There was this health aspect at that point, in addition to the way we saw violence playing out in our stores. And
Mhm.
today it's really around theft and violence, and less around, and it's also around mental health. It's less around the physical health as a result of the virus. So that was really interesting findings on the research as well. But yeah, it's sort of like a regrounding.
Mhm.
But a lot of those individuals weren't involved in working with departments on improving measures in store operations, improving temperature control, improving ordering forecasting, improving merchandising. And you're starting to see that more and more across the industry.
Right. So let's talk about the survey a little bit. So, I mean, fascinating stuff that you guys put together. I love this survey. You guys got results from 26 companies, over 29,000 store locations, which is pretty impressive. How did this survey come about?
Again, another thing that came out of the council.
Great.
They're always trying to learn from each other and trying to understand how they're moving the industry collectively. And
Mhm.
so a few years back, we had been doing this within the council um, as one-offs. And so we said, what is the opportunity for us to start making this a little bit more of a formal activity? And we can actually benchmark and show where the companies and the industry might actually seeing some improvement. It'll also help us understand some trends that might be coming ahead of us that we need to be thinking about. And so the council was fully behind this. As a matter of fact, Chris Harris with the Kroger Company, he's the vice chair of the council, and his responsibility is industry insights. So he and several of the council members help with the questions, and then everybody within the council, which really sort of covers a good percentage of the industry, if not, upwards of 80% of the industry, responds to that survey, giving us really good data.
Great. And so you said, when did the first version of this survey come out? Is this the inaugural survey, or has this been
No, this is
long?
actually, I want to say this is our third report.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd be interested in seeing some of the trends over time. So speaking of that, seeing it, how does the retailer get their hands on this survey? How could they take?
Yes. So the best way to do it is go to fmi.org. And there's a couple different ways. You can go directly to our store and you can search it within our store, or you can go to industry topics and look under asset protection and go down to the bottom, and there's a carousel at the bottom, and you can download it there. You end up at the store again, but giving you two ways might improve your chances of finding it. Of course, we have a huge search bar in the middle of our website to try and make things even easier. And you can just type in asset protection 2024 and it should render in the results.
Excellent. So I know that you probably can't talk in specifics about some of my questions that I have coming up for you, but I know from looking at the survey that we continue to see that AP and LP are just pulled in a million different directions, and their roles keep expanding, but their resources are limited. That's
Yeah.
the same old song that we've heard for many, many years, I think. Um, what other methods are you hearing from your members that they're using to battle shrink? Anything on
Uh,
the horizon?
yeah, technology plays a big role, right? I
Right.
mean, what you think about, labor challenges across the industry, the easiest, not the easiest. I don't want my CIOs are going to hit me for that one. Probably one of the best places to look is how can technology help me automate some of those activities that allow me to spend time on other activities. So, we're seeing a lot in the way of technology, from support at self-checkout, support at, with shrink overall, working and collaborating with others, utilizing the orcas
Mhm.
within your states. They've been significant help in helping to, actually investigate some of these crime rings and build a case that can be taken to the FBI or HSI. So that's another way of doing that. But there's technology is just it's amazing the amount of innovation that is happening in helping asset protection professionals even do around data analytics
Mhm.
of what type of basket is being stolen, so that you can start identifying what are the highest stolen items and what are the highest stolen baskets, so that you can start making mitigation plans against those particular data points.
So speaking of baskets, I know that self-checkout continues to be in the news. We hear retailers are going back and forth on this, not just in grocery, but all retailers. They're scaling it back, or they're putting new rules around it. What are you hearing from your membership?
I you know Scan and Go is never going to go away.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of times I think that's when a retailer makes an announcement that they're going to pull it out of a store, or they win 100% in a store and now they're changing their plans to go back. That
Mhm.
is the perfect example of a retailer responding to the consumer, but also testing and piloting solutions based on consumer feedback.
Mhm.
And so I think we're going to continue to see scan and go, frictionless shelf checkout type activities happen. We'll just see them play out in various ways. I always sort of draw an analogy. There is 45,000 SKUs in a grocery store because customers want variety. That it that's no different in the way they want service. They want variety in service.
Mhm.
Some folks like me, I'm a self-checkout person. It might have been because I worked in a store and I actually know the banana code. I think most people know the banana code, but right? If
Yeah.
you feel comfortable with it, then that is an efficient way for you to shop and move on. Other people, they want to have that conversation with the cashier, right?
Mhm.
So I think as we continue to test and learn about how consumers shop and what their needs and wants are, we'll continue to see the ebb and flow on how people engage within the store.
Right. I think there's a tendency in the media, right, to sensationalize things, right? So if there's a Target that happened to stop doing a self checkout, it becomes big news. But to your point, retailers, they test things all the time. It's part of their MO.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
as it should be.
Yeah.
So the other thing that we noticed from the survey is that the food retailers really seem to be at like a high level of preparedness. They're feeling like they're very prepared for active shooter now, or that they have plans in place. A range of situations could be a data breach, just a high level of preparedness. Has the FMI participated in that, or does the FMI help grocery retailers with education or any other types of programs?
Yeah, so we have a partnership with Teapot with a Power of Preparedness, and I know they work with a couple other industry associations. And it doesn't mean that every one of our members utilizes this as a tool, but the one thing that we at FMI believe, and we hear our members ask us, is make sure that we understand the landscape of available resources to us, and then make sure we understand the headwinds. And so if we see one of those headwinds and there's a training opportunity that can be attached to it, we try to help them with that. Now, depending on where you're at as a retailer or product manufacturer on your maturity level in those particular areas, you might say, hey, thank you. It's a can type training program. I'm going to put my company through it and I'm going to augment it, or I'm going to take it as is, or I'm going to work with that company to build my own custom one. And so having that flexibility to implement or embed that training into their own training, how they see best fits, is been working out really well. We have another partnership with a company called Early Alert, and they're former weathermen, policemen, firemen, and their job is to early alerts. When do they see something sort of coming at them? And so whether our members work directly with them, we have a partnership with them. We get some baseline information that I can push out, or my colleague Tom Cosgrove can push out. It at least sort of gets their antenna up on something that might be coming their way. At the conference, we had de-escalation training. So anytime we can introduce a topic, a training, a company to the industry, we like to do that. And we don't have exclusive partnerships. We're not a club, we're an association. But these two, Early Alert and Teapot, came to us with a program that we were able to present to our members, and we welcome other solution providers to do that as well.
Great. I know, especially with the possibility of a contentious election coming up, I'm hoping that retailers and especially grocery are getting themselves prepared for what might come. Anything that FMI is doing along those lines?
Well, yeah, several things. One is making sure that our members have timely information. Two, our marketing and communications team spends a lot of time on social media, keeping an eye out for those types of messaging in social media that we might be hearing, making sure that we have strong partnerships with the public sector, with HSI, with FBI, with local law enforcement, currently having dialogues with various cities around civility and safety, and what are the things that we should be thinking about as a national association, working with our state association partners and local authorities in order to try and get ahead of what we might experience, things that we can support or things that we can create. So there's a lot of activities that are going on sort of across the association. They're all focused on making sure our members have all of the tools and resources that they need, though.
Great. So if someone wants to join or get involved with FMI, how would they go about doing that, Doug?
Yeah, the simplest way, if you're a self-checkout kind of person, you can do it right on our website.
Yep.
And there's a join now button out there, and it can walk you through it. Of course, they can email me. I'm happy to point them in the right direction. But we do have a couple gentlemen here that really sort of lead our membership and associate membership classifications, Peter Collins and Dan Ratner. All of our contacts are pretty much on fmi.org. So anybody listening that might be interested in finding one of us, if you spend some time on our website, you'll find a way to get to us. And we're happy to have that conversation with you.
Excellent. Well, congratulations on another successful conference. I'm glad that it went so well and that you guys continue to evolve. It's great to hear. And what's next this year for you guys? Anything else happening?
Well, yeah, I mentioned those civility dialogues. Those have been pretty interesting that we've been having around the country, and we'll continue to have those. We have our AP Fall Summit coming up, so we're going to start planning that, and we're going to be Kroger is our host this year. So one of the council members always hosts. We go into their marketing area. We meet for a day and a half. We tour some stores. We sit around the table and we address big issues. And then we'll start planning for APGR 2025. Just like that, it comes around again.
It'll be here before you know it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, it was so nice talking with you, Doug. And anything that the magazine can do to help you, please let us know. But if anyone wants to get a hold of Doug, you can reach him through the website, fmi.org, correct?
Yes.
All right. Excellent. But thank you
Yes.
again. Great to talk with you.
Well, and we appreciate you guys. Your partnership with our Rising Stars program has been wonderful. We were so pleased to award another winner of that this year. So
Right.
we enjoy the partnership and thank you guys. And we're always here to help you as well.
Great. Take care, Doug.
Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.